13 Questions by Man Transcending. Manhood in the Digital Age.
Welcome back to another episode of 13 Questions. This time we are joined by Adam W. from the Mental Mastery Alliance.com. And I have with me, as always, Adam Loyal. We got two Adams this episode, double Adam action. What's going on, man?
Not much, my friend. Yeah. It was the Adam Squared episode.
Yeah. Adam was Adam W. Is a real cool guy. I came across him on Instagram and checked out what he had going on as far as his creative project of Mental Mastery Alliance, and he has a podcast, of course, which we talk about a little bit on the show. And I just thought it would make a great conversation, and I was right. It did. It was an excellent conversation. Adam is truly a breath of fresh air in today's social media environment, at least in my opinion. Anyway, yours might be different, but I don't really care. That might seem mean, but once you listen to the interview, that might not seem so harsh later on. But yeah. Speaking of not caring, we're going to switch gears to a little bit, I guess, now and talk about caring and about what we're grateful for, because this is something that Adam Loyal and I do, or that we have been doing. It hasn't been a part of the show since its inception, but we have instituted a gratitude segment in the intros, the introductions of each episode. Excuse me, and we have a jingle that helps facilitate this, and the idea behind it is to help get our hearts and our minds coherent, working together, because it is within that space which all the fun starts to happen, right? So we do have, on top of that, we do have since we are value for value, before we get into the jingle, play the jingle, I want to explain the gratitude jar real quickly. Any one-time donation or a recurring donation of any amount, since we are value for value, like I said, we'll get your name as a bonus added to a written in purple ink, added to a jar surrounded by stones that are of the pinkish purple hues. So I call them stones of the violet ray, I guess is a good term for them, or violet flame. Yeah, maybe. But they each have very specific metaphysical properties, which we do cover starting in episode 98 and moving forward until I think we ended with Darren's, which was 108. So definitely go and check out those episodes to figure out what stones are. Actually, I could name them for you here, but we won't go over the metaphysical properties of them. But we do have some cobaltine calcite, some charoite, stitchtite, lapidolite, azurite, that is Brandberg quartz, sugilite, pink tourmaline, purpurite, smithsonite, amethyst, and I think that about concludes it from what I can see right now anyway. So yeah, each of those kind of helps facilitate making this heart and brain coherence easier to achieve, I guess is a good term to put it. So in order to kickstart all of that, because it's good to be in that kind of space when we dive into the more introspective questions during the show, Adam and I have a jingle and we just share something that we're grateful for real quickly. So I feel like I've talked enough. Here is the jingle.
Gratitude, 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 oh gratitude. Gratitude, 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 oh gratitude.
Did I mention lepidolite? Do you remember if I said lepidolite? We do have purple lepidolite.
Pretty sure you did.
Okay, cool.
But if you
That
didn't, you
one's
did.
super neat just because it's got copper wrapped around it and it's in the shape of a heart. I did put a picture of this on the Instagram, or not Instagram, on the Discord page. If anybody wants to see, like, I've been talking about this for a while and finally just put a picture up. So it is real. Like, it does exist. Everybody's wondering. But yeah, Adam, did you want to share for?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to. It's a double down on frequency for myself. I was a little slow this episode. I've got a pretty bad headache going on today, but I have been wearing green color therapy glasses for migraine here for about a week, all day long while I've been at work using the computer. Right now, and I also took one of my those green LED bulbs to work that I had spoken about. You didn't hear before, they're 522 or 520 nanometer green lights that Harvard study found that green lights help soothe people with migraine and reduce pain, and specifically that wavelength. So in preparation of working for home, I've been setting up the home office, and I've got 3 of these bulbs currently in this space lighting up in green with the green glasses on. And it has been, not saying I feel great, but I feel way better than without it. So I'm just incredibly grateful for the knowledge of that frequency, to artificially being able to surround myself with the color of nature and get relief from it. Because ultimately, migraine, that pain, it's swelling of the brain, and I like to think that this is actually preventing damage.
Yeah, I would say that it seems to be working. I know that we've done recordings in the past where you've had a migraine before and you've been silent, but this, I couldn't tell really. So you just seemed a little bit more chipper, and I know that you're struggling, but yeah, I think it seems to have helped. So that's super neat that frequency and color green is helping out.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. We're all outside of the environment. We're all surrounded by other frequencies, Wi-Fi, all the frequency of 60 hertz coming out from your lights, the headphones blasting frequencies into me, the natural ambience, the electrical signals, all of that. It's penetrating us. And, there's the one that our eyes are always absorbing. And, it's get vitamin D from your retinas. What else is going on? And yeah, maybe being in a forest really can stop headache. Maybe the reason that I have headache is because I'm not in a forest enough. Or at least, it helps. So yeah, I'm a firm believer. Green is good for migraines, at least for myself.
Oh yeah. And my gratitude actually ties in to something that you recommended, and it's helped me immensely. Is this book that I mentioned on the show during the interview, The Field by Lynn McTaggart. And yeah, so my gratitude is books in general, because the amount of reading that I've done this year, probably I read more books this year than I have probably in the last, I don't know, 5 years put together, the past 5 years, right? Just because of doing the show and all the book recommendations on the list. Finally got to Adam's book recommendation, which was The Field, and that book just brings down all of the what we think of like woo-woo concepts, and there's actual scientific data to back up and present. Like when we say that you are a being of light, made of light, then yeah, that book can. There's Dr. Fitzalbert Pop had proved that we emanate light. So it's just kind of neat to put the scientific end spin. I don't know, spin's not the right word, right? But I would think
it's a connection. Look, dowsing rods work. They're real. There's an effect. Precognition is real. You've experienced it. You've thought about the person calling on the phone before. There is scientific experiment showing that the body does emit photons. Like, these are things. There is such thing as experiments that react to the emotions, that random number generators will change when there's a traumatic event on the planet, aka the death of a celebrity like Michael Jackson or the tsunami. Like, these things will change the number generation. You can sit somebody in a room and statistically alter the number of balls falling into chambers. And these are all little things that, we we go, oh yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing here. It's an interesting thing here. Yeah, the power of prayer. But then when you take a book like that, which really just kind of lays them all out and ties them together with this idea of a field, the idea of this thing that can be tapped into. And when you just start taking it from that layer, and then it's like, wow, yeah, look at all this evidence. This is amazing. And yeah, that book just does an incredible job. Like, it was a game changer to me because I was Mr. Science and also believer in, all these other things and possibilities, but I had never laced the connections together and been exposed to a lot of the information. And since then, I mean, it sent me down, the Ingo Swann route with remote viewing and, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, or was he a doctor? Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut. I went to his funeral when he passed away here in South Florida. So yeah, it's that book really has sent me down a innumerable paths that I'm still on.
Yeah, and what makes it even more interesting is that we actually got to interview Dean Radin, who is...
I know, like, you have no idea. I want to interview him again. I was like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, well, we can get him back on for 13 Questions Second Act, or Redo, or Redux, whatever we decide to term those.
Yeah, Dean Radin is legitimately one of my role models, my heroes, like top 3, up there with like Arthur C. Clarke. He's just, next to my dad.
And speaking of future guests, if you, the listener, have a guest suggestion, I am super easy to get a hold of. Just email the show or reach out on any of the social media platforms that we have. And guest suggestions or questions that you want asked or ideas. I'm not that hard to talk to. So if you have anything that you want to see implemented in the show, or just curious about, something, or just want to chat or say hi, reach out. I'm in charge of the social media.
We got a couple. We got a good question suggestion during the episode. If you think that is a good question, send it in. If you've got a better one, send it in. Even if you don't like the show, send that in.
Right. Yeah.
Constant updates.
You got to handle it like CNN and the Weather Channel. Constant updates.
You are such an idiot.
No, he's got a point.
I'll take any feedback. Any and all feedback is welcome. If speaking of, if you haven't yet, and you do enjoy the show, leave us a rating or review on whatever platform that you use. I don't think we've been asking for a lot of that since I've been doing the show, at least. So
make us look good. Tell your friends. Spread the word. If you like the show, keep us around. You like that tomato plant outside? You want more tomatoes? Stop watering it. See what happens. You will get no tomatoes. Let us be your tomato. Tomato. Whatever.
Tomato.
Attack of the killer tomatoes.
And with that, this is 13 Questions with Adam W. Question number 1. What does it mean to be a man in today's world?
That's a bit of a loaded question, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, depending on who you ask, depending on a myriad of factors, what it means to be a man, to me, is protection of self, protection of values, protection of core essence. Is an entity what operates in, I guess, unapologetic confidence. And you're going to get a lot of people that say, well, that's just, toxic masculinity. No. Toxic masculinity is actually the lack of masculinity. So what does it mean to be a man in today's world? Man, if you're asking me, which you are, I suppose I'm the guest on this episode of 13 Questions. I'd say just be as absolutely true as you possibly can to yourself, operate with the highest level of integrity, and keep moving forward. That's what it takes to be a man.
Excellent answer. I can't say I disagree with anything. I like the protection aspect that you brought up, because that to me speaks of the warrior archetype, and a lot of men like to think of themselves as warrior, but it's also important to do the shadow work, like the inner warrior stuff, which speaks to the values that you were alluding to.
Well, it's funny. I didn't have a list of the questions that you were going to ask me, but the last thing that I posted on the Mental Mastery Alliance Instagram was masculinity isn't toxic. The absence of it is. Weak men are abusive and spiteful. Strong, masculine men are protective and loving.
Very true.
You guys are low on energy here, eh? What's going on? Chop, both of you. What? How are your days going? Do you guys hit the gym? Like, what are we? I'm going to start asking you guys some questions here. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. Well, all right. Question number 2. What was the most important lesson you learned from your parents?
From my parents, I learned a lot of how not to do things and what not to do and how not to act and how not to be. My father was a full-blown narcissist, and my mother was a behind-the-scenes control freak. In other words, she would never outright say anything, but she would do her little damnedest to manipulate all the situations so that she came off as innocent and everybody else was a piece of shit. That's not to say she's a terrible person. I absolutely adore my mother. My father's passed away. What have I learned from my parents? I learned everything that they had to teach. I understood too where they plateaued, and where I was supposed to pick it up from there, where I could only live to a certain level through them, and then I would have to take their teachings, their rudimentary level, and I would have to expand upon that for myself. So I hit a ledge with my parents, and now hopefully they're learning from me, or she's learning from me, which she is. Heaven. Thankfully, actually, she's. It's interesting to watch her sort of adapt and amalgamate and see new things. So, I learned to a degree, certain levels, certain places, certain things, and then from there you're on your own, right?
Yeah, you have to build off of that because we're a synthesis of our parents, and so we kind of have to complete. I mean, ideally, right? Complete. Like, is anything ever really complete? Speaking of life journeys and whatnot, but synthesizing those two poles that we get from our parents. And I like that your first answer right after I asked the question was how not to act, because I put this question back in the list specifically because dealing with parents, like, even though sometimes we learn how not to do things from them and it's not always good, like, it's still good in the sense that this is how we first learn to get energy from the world, right? And this affects us so much going out and forward and growing up, and developing and maturing. This energy exchange that we develop with our parents, that's this kind of control drama that we play out if we're not aware of it. And then I love that.
We get to a spot too with our parents where we learn a lot about ourselves, and we want to be like, I want to blame my parents for this, I want to blame my parents for that. Your parents were just two humans randomly doing random shit. One night they had too much to drink, and 9 months later you were here, right? So it's not like these people were legends. It's not like it's a beautiful, like you said earlier, it's a beautiful continuation. You are a piece of the ongoing story. What we want to do is blame them. We want to do, whatever we can to say, because of this and that and this and that, my life was shit because my parents did this. Well, the truth is, every single thing that you ever experienced that was shitty was an opportunity for you to overcome it. So everything that you thought your parents were doing that was shitty, and yes, some kids get their asses handed to them by their parents. That teaches you to not listen to or respect your parents. That teaches you to honestly move your ass to do something else and be somewhere else. And there are so many people out here, especially the younger generation, that are just desperately trying to play the victim to this. Meanwhile, everything that could ever make you the victim is the one thing that was designed to make you stronger. You made the choice to go one way or the other with that. So the parents are just a lineage of your own personal journey, just like you're a lineage of their journey, just like they're a lineage of their parents, and you're on, family line string theory-ish topics there.
No, and I love how you started that off, just like Bill said there, but, what not to do, because that's just as valuable as a lesson, and in some ways can be more galvanizing. So, I mean, as bad as things can be, it's also still teaching.
Every single thing that we do is a learning lesson. That's hot, that's cold, that's hard, that's soft. Every single thing. The only thing that makes things bad or right or wrong is how we interpreted it, or how we wanted it to be, or how we assumed it was going to be. So right and wrong is inside your head. Good and evil, good and bad. It's all a battle that you're having inside of you. Everyone's different. So every opportunity is merely an opportunity. Everything that could ever happen to you at any time, ever, it's happening for you to experience it and to become from it.
It's almost as if like if you have an opportunity and you didn't learn that lesson there, it sticks with you in the form of like a trauma or something that is kind of hanging out in your energy field waiting for you to resolve it. And I think
Not almost like that's 100% correct.
yeah. Right. And so at that point, like when we realize that, we can go back and reauthorize those experiences and get them to be healing for us. And a lot of times that starts with our childhood, and that of course involves our parents. So
yep,
makes sense.
Agreed on all fronts.
All right, moving on to question 3. I think this might be my favorite question. What book has been the most influential on your life, and why?
This is a myriad of answers I have for this one, because every part of your life is a different piece, and every chapter is different when you truly look at it. So, in my younger years, when I was young, I was just a sales guy, right? And I was an entrepreneur. I had my own company. That was because I could sell. So everybody was doing mowing lawns, and I decided I was going to clean windows. So I started a window company. I built the window company, and then I sold the window company. And that was all basically going door to door, asking people if they wanted their windows cleaned. So there was a lot of chutzpah and tenacity inside me from a young age. I could easily go up and talk to anybody about anything. And that was a gift. I was also kind of a pile of shit, and I had false bravado ego. I was overcompensating for my mommy issues, insecurities, abandonment issues, all of these things as a younger man. I look back on it now, I see that. Back then I had no fucking clue what I was doing. You know, every actor or every aggressor was once a victim. And you look at that and you see sort of the things that parlay out in your life. So as a young man, things came easy to me. As a middle young man, as a very young boy, nothing came easy. Everything was a fight. And as a young man, I learned how to speak, I learned how to sell, and I learned how to create. I also learned what drinking was and what drugs were and all that fun stuff too. So my life was just a grand circle of creating earnings and then blowing it on stupidity. So, and I didn't like Bills. Was never a fan of Bills. So, not the Buffalo Bills. Also not a fan of them either, though. The first book that ever caught my eye in my first growth, my first aha moment, my first breakthrough, my first level up was Jim Rohn, The Art of Exceptional Living. And Jim Rohn is an absolutely masterful speaker. And he ironically sounded a hell of a lot like Darren Pang from NHL 2003 and NHL 2004. So I was listening to a man who sounded very much like a hockey announcer who I'd been listening to the majority of my life. So now I'm getting, life pointers from the hockey caller. And that was fun to me because that was an audiobook. And audiobooks, all audiobooks, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you this right now. If you ever want to change your life, get an audiobook subscription anywhere and pay for it. Because anything that we have for free, nobody gives a shit about. So pay for your audiobooks and embrace that energy. Now, Jim Rohn was the start for me, and I listened to that book a ton of times. Jim Rohn led me into a ton of different other avenues and ventures. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Just finished reading that.
Yeah, it's a good one. There's a lot of legendary stuff out there, and truthfully legendary stuff. Like these are the building blocks of society, the shit that we were never taught in school. School was a huge waste of your time. It made you hate learning because it was indoctrination and bullshit. Now, when you decide that you want to take your education into your own hands, there's just avenues everywhere, and they're absolutely phenomenal. So Jim Rohn was a huge one, and there's a circle that I valued from picking up the Jim Rohn. From there, a lot of the stuff is how to make money and how to not be happy, or how to be happy with money and how to earn so that you can be happy. And the truth is, money never created happiness. Money was always a bullshit illusion. And we were talking about this before we started recording. But it's the biggest, one of the grandest illusions out there that we have to pursue this money. And in doing so, we forego who we are. That being said, once you start earning money and once you start doing things that are in alignment with you, money becomes less of an issue. Much like air, you don't think about it until you absolutely need it. That's how money is. And when you're constantly thinking about money, you're making the wrong moves. You're making mistakes. You're sort of flip-flopping all over the place. If you're not working in passion and circles, then you're not doing the right thing. Now, the whole world will shit on you and say, how can you possibly say that because we all need money to blah, blah, blah. Yes, granted, true. But when you start making small adjustments inside your own life, you can deter and change course while still, quote unquote, struggling for money. You can start creating passion inside yourself, inside your actions, inside what you're doing. And from there, you can build on out and eventually shift over to creating for passion instead of creating to earn. Now, that was a bit of a tangent. After you've done this, or after I did this, so into my next breakthrough, it was more spiritual. It was more in alignment with everything. And as a conspiracy theorist, quote unquote, the drastic conspiracy theorist that everybody hates, I asked questions, was the bottom line. I asked a lot of questions about a lot of things, about absolutely everything I wanted to know an answer to. And the more answers you got, the more you realized you got more questions. The more questions you got, and the more answers you got, the more you realize that none of it makes any sense. So you can constantly hunt answers and you can constantly hunt questions. But the truth of the matter is, the last breakthrough I went, the final breakthrough, not the final one, because I'm sure there's other ones coming, but the last one I went through was minimalism. And you realize that to find out more about who you are and what you are, you have to let go of absolutely everything that was ever handed to you, ever in the history of anything, to find out the truth. So you're unloading all of it. And when I came into that journey, I'd worked my way through the finances, obviously. One of the greatest books when you are trying to chase finance is The Compound Effect, Darren J. Hardy. Phenomenal book. And it just sort of talks about how you can compound, basically, would you take a penny that multiplies, that doubles every day for 30 days, or would you take $1 million? And everyone's like, I'll take the $1 million. Well, the penny actually works out to be more. So when you do your compounding, that book's phenomenal. But when you get past all of that, when you sort of see past the superficiality of literally all of it, you get into a spot where you're like, well, what else? What else is there? What's more? And that's where I found Jed McKenna. And Jed McKenna is a pen name, and he's got probably 7 or 8 books. And I recommend anything that you can get your hands on from Jed McKenna. All of it. Absolutely all of it. And that stuff, it's just him talking about stuff and telling small stories and telling about his time in a cabin and telling about his time working here and there and hither and yon. And it's his perspective and how he sees things. And it's not for everyone, but if you're cosmically aligned, I guess you could say, it is a book that is incredible. Now, if you're quietly into conspiracies and you're not 100% into, believing this, that, and the other thing, a smaller breakthrough could land you in a book called Behold a Pale Horse, or Fourth Industrial Revolution, Klaus Schwab. These are fascinating books about what's going on in our time. Klaus Schwab just wrote this book recently. Behold a Pale Horse was written in the 70s, but it could basically have been written yesterday. It's the plan that they've laid out that we're all living in right now that we think is reality. I have a lot to say about books, but I'll stop there.
Excellent information. We do have a running book list on our website of the answers that all the guests have given, which make an excellent book reading list to reference if you're looking for one. But yeah, I have not heard of Jim Rome before, so I'll definitely be checking that out. And I will do it specifically with the audiobook because it just sounds interesting getting advice from like a play-by-play hockey announcer guy.
It's not the same guy. They just have the identical voice. So, yeah, I don't know if you remember Darren Pang from back in the day. That's who he sounds like.
It's also kind of it's very synchronistic that you mentioned How to Win Friends and Influence People, because I literally just finished reading that book maybe, I don't know, a few days ago.
Have you picked up Interview with the Devil or Outwitting the Devil?
I haven't, but I don't own it yet, but I'm going to get there.
So literally, if you just put down How to Win Friends, pick up Outwitting the Devil.
Okay.
Outwitting the Devil is a conversation with an elite. They have to share their truths. So the character playing the devil was basically, he was interviewing an elite. An elite was sharing with him all of the things that's going on right now. So they added information to it. They talked about how they're dumbing down society. They talked about all this stuff, and they had to give answers. He couldn't extrapolate or anything like that, but it's such a fascinating book. It's so well written. It's an absolute classic. And it follows right along the lines with How to Win Friends.
Is that a Dale Carnegie book then, or is it a Napoleon? Hill?
Phenomenal.
Napoleon Hill. Sorry, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I got to get to Napoleon soon. There's another one that he wrote that I want to read, but I can't remember the name right now.
Think and Grow Rich, and there's a couple of them.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich. And this is the thing too, because these guys were talking about the same thing I'm talking about, where you like, once you've got money, it's so pointless, right? We spend our lives being like, I need more money. And then when we have all that money, we buy bigger things and newer things. We're like, I still need more money. And when we're hunting money, we're not hunting purpose. So all of these guys found out that once you had enough money and you were like, okay with it, you could really pursue purpose. If you weren't trying to stay third dimensional and keep up with the Joneses.
It was almost like nip it in the bud now, like the money thing, and focus on your passion, because that's what these people end up having to do anyway, right?
All of them.
Yeah.
Anyone that's ever done anything with their lives and created happiness, I mean, the number one thing that I do in my creation or in my profession is I eradicate depression and anxiety in people through thought process, right? And a lot of this has to do with the lie that we've been fed since birth about what we're supposed to pursue, how we're supposed to find what we're looking for, and all this sort of shit. It's all a lie. Everything. And that's the craziest thing in the world. So once you sort of get that information, I can say that over and over again. People are like, what are you talking about? You're just a tinfoil hat guy. Right? But when you can, here's another one. Manifestation. Right? People don't believe that manifestation is real. You can have anything you want. People don't believe that. Right? But the life that we currently live, the life that you're living right now, Adam number 2, is a direct result of every ounce of effort you've put in. No more and no less. So if you want more, do more. If you want less, do less. Right? People don't get that, though. People don't understand that. I say Adam number 2 because there's no eyes for me to look into here, ladies and gentlemen. Not a video podcast, but he's hiding in the shadows, that one.
Yeah, it's these truths, like you were saying, if they taught them, in school, like you were saying, because there was a question that we ask sometimes as a bonus, like what institution of society would you change given the chance, and most often it's school, right? And I know at the end of How to Win Friends and Influence People, he was saying that I was reminiscing actually with my father. Actually, I don't think that Dale said this, but I wish that I would have come across this book like 10 years ago when I was still, in junior high. Now, okay, I wasn't in junior high 10 years ago, right? But just earlier in life, because these lessons are just timeless, right?
How old are you guys?
I am about to be 34.
Just turned 40.
Nice. So we're all roughly the same age. I'm 42. I'm roughly about to be 34 as well. And my 30s were crazy. Most of my 30s were spent desperately wanting to be 20 again, or in my 20s. And it was such a waste. After 35, things change. After 40, everything's amazing. There's a quote, I can't remember who said it, but it was, life is a practice run. Life up until 40 is a practice run. And then it really kicks in at 40. And when you live a life that you don't give two shits about what anybody thinks, what anybody says, when you actually understand that nobody's thinking about you at all, period, that your image and what you think, anything you've ever thought that anyone could possibly be thinking about you was only ever you thinking and putting your own spin on it. All the things you hate about yourself, you're like, this person thinks this about me. This person thinks my style is this. No. It's just you beating yourself up. When you can shut down all the voices and all the garbage and all the bullshit and literally just actuate on your own life, that shit comes from knowledge, experience, time, age, wisdom. After 40 is beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, when you start to realize that other people aren't thinking about you nearly as often as you once thought they were.
Other people are actually only there as contrast to you.
Well, yeah, they're thinking about themselves, worrying about what you're thinking, not thinking about that thing about you.
Or they may not even be real. They may only exist to create a better experience for you. In other words, there's a possibility that we sit in a simulation right now, right? Where everything that's happening right now is happening specifically for you to become a better version of you. Without challenges and without obstacles, there's nothing that, there's another good one, Ryan Holiday, Obstacle is the Way. That's a solid book. Without challenges. I mean, okay, so we're all of the same age. We could talk about Street Fighter 2, right? You guys both played that game?
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Good. So imagine you do all this work in Street Fighter 2, and then you like, okay, I'm Ken. I'm going to pick the red suit, or maybe the blue guy. And you get into the game, you load up, right? There's no opponent on the other side of the screen. Well, shit, what am I supposed to do now? Right? So you need that controversy. You need that fight to grow, to learn. Now, also, imagine there is an opponent, and you set the volume or the difficulty level to 0. You just walk over all these people. Well, that's boring real quick. So you set it to 10. You get your ass handed to you. Well, that's boring real quick. So you set it to 6, difficulty level 6. And now you have amicable, pliable conflict that you can beat these guys. Sometimes they beat you, sometimes you beat them. And then you start getting good at 6. You go to 6.5, you go to 7. And that's you going through the stages. Right now, you started at 0 when it was difficult, when you couldn't feed yourself. Now you're at 40, difficulty level 40. Soon you'll be at difficulty level 90. And then you'll kick out. You'll go on to whatever's next.
Difficulty level 90 is like the big challenges I use in the bathroom or something. I don't know.
That's right. That's getting out of bed, man. Yo, this meat suit is letting me down.
Right? I only need these teeth until I die. They're about done.
Who needs teeth when you got soup? Obstacles, baby. It's not the worst. It's like, it's the worst if you wanted to constantly eat steak. But if you like lost all your teeth and you didn't have the money for dentures or whatever, you lost the ability to chew, and soup is pretty tasty, right? So nutrients and sustenance, all there, but it's the story inside your head that makes it terrible. God damn it, I wish I could eat meat. It's the me, it's the ego, it's the buildup that wants this. But if you're okay with it, it is what it is. Just enjoy life. I'll have soup then at 90 years old with my diaper on.
Question number 4. What
All
was
right.
the best advice ever given to you? Would you move it? Would you modify it at all today?
Best advice ever given to me. Wow. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any advice. That was great. There's a piece of advice that comes to mind, and it was this. When you're pulling up to a traffic light, on the right-hand side, you'll see a flashing light. When that light is flashing, it means the light in front of you is about to turn yellow. After yellow, it turns red. Be prepared to stop. That's honestly the only piece of advice I ever remember anyone handing to me. My whole life was self-discovery, really. I was told forever that I couldn't do it. I was told that I need to shut up, I need to sit down, I need to be quiet. I was never encouraged to speak, to stand out. I was always coerced to keep my mouth shut and to not rock the boat. So the advice that I got came from the audiobooks, and there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of advice, new knowledge, new information that comes from the audiobooks. Advice to me, maybe I'll circle back to that one a little bit later. Something might trigger into me, but normally when you ask me a question like this is totally off the cuff. I've got no practice, and these things are just rolling to my head. This one, aside from the traffic light, I got nothing.
No, I appreciate that answer because there's a quote that struck me that I recently finished reading in a book called The Field by Lynn McTaggart. And I believe it's by Russell Targ or Elizabeth Targ. It is received wisdom makes for bad science. So what that says to me is that you can tell somebody something all day long, right? But unless they experience it and try it for themselves, like try it out, like it's not gonna stick, right? So asking
100%.
asking for advice unsolicited or trying to fix people or change people or whatever, it's really not. If it's received and not worked for, then it's anything ill-gotten, right? It's probably not going to work out for you.
Appreciate that one too. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Question number 5. What do you willfully ignore?
Everything. Absolutely everything. And I even ignore myself. So the idea is you got to follow these rules. You got to do this. You got to do that, right? But who made the rules and who's enforcing the rules? And why do I have to follow these things? And these things don't make any sense to me. So absolutely everything we've ever been told about absolutely everything, period, point blank, dead stop, is false. So you need to ignore all of it and you need to start extrapolating. So don't take anything at all at face value, not even the shit that I'm saying. Look into it, do your research, extrapolate, pick and choose all of the things that you find important and compare them to something else to figure something else out. Right? What do we do blindly right now? We shit on any free thinker and we say, trust the science. We say, no, these people know more than you. These people, why? You chose to say that this perfect stranger over here knows more than me, even though you've known me my entire life. So all of your haptic feedbacks are going to be from people who know you, right? The people who are going to respect you are the people that don't know who you are, because they're going to create a story about who you are inside their mind. So go out there, be bold, be brave, ignore everything, right? Operate with 100% integrity and live a truly happy life.
I like it. Yeah. Especially, take everything with a huge grain of salt, especially when you first come across it. Like you said, take nothing at face value. Like that's true from what I've found. Like just being a skeptic and following scientific method, thinking for yourself, really, it's so much better than just listening to whatever's spewing out of the mind control box.
Exactly.
Yeah, find something that works. You don't need somebody to tell you that it works, Mantras work. Adopt them. Doesn't matter what science says.
What you'll see too is that everything that they're telling you to do right now, and everything that that if you don't question it, or like if you do question it, you're terrible. We're being controlled with fear, scarcity, and lack right now. And to shake that programming is total liberation, right? And if you really see it for what it is, you understand that we are being controlled with fear, lack, all that stuff. Scarcity. Oh boy. What else? Terrible. So yeah. That's kind of how I question number 6. What rule do you have for yourself that you never break? And why do you think that it's important? Well, the one rule that I will never break is operate with 100% integrity. Because this world is a piece of shit. Right? And that's only because it reflects the way you are. So is art imitating life, or is life imitating art? Well, if you're a piece of shit, which I was, so I can't even speak for anyone listening. I was a glorified piece of shit because I was making up for all kinds of stupid stories I told myself. And I take full responsibility for everything I've ever done. I didn't kill anybody. You guys mentioned earlier on the show, don't talk about the skeletons. I didn't kill nobody. But I was a jerk. I was a dick. I was a bouncer. I was big. I was arrogant, cocky, and it was all coming from small man. I was all hiding something. It's the truth. So, for me now in my middle years, I'm saying operate with 100% integrity. That way, nobody can come back to you and say you did this, you did that, you were a piece of shit. They can say that. They can come back to you and say that. But since you have 100% without a shadow of a doubt, every single day of your life operated with 100% integrity, it's all bullshit. You can stand proud in front of anyone that's pointing a finger at you and say, I'm calling your bluff. I want to hear your story. And if I did offend you and affected that way, let's get at it. Right? But we live in a time and in a world right now where every single person that's ever stuck their neck out is getting accused of something. Right. So when you operate with 100% integrity, they can accuse all they want, and you can stand there and take the bullets. They can't cancel you if you don't care, first and foremost. And if you operate with integrity, the world pushes back. There are some people that can't handle you. How is it that there's always a hater, no matter how good you are, no matter what you're trying to do? There's always somebody out there that wants to shit on everything you're doing. That's universal, which basically means it is just another obstacle for you to overcome. So yes, the one unbreakable rule is every single day, do everything you've ever done with 100% integrity.
It reminds me of I think it's Mark Twain quote about tell the truth all the time. You don't have to worry about covering your tracks or something along the lines of that, right?
Oh yeah.
And the Ryan Holiday book that you mentioned earlier, I think that was one of my answers to the questions when I went through them. But operating with integrity, like especially when in regards to like any creative endeavors out there, like once you create a project and put it out there, like a podcast, right? You have the episode and you publish it, and it's really out of your hands at that point. So it doesn't really matter what people think about it. Like you put forth the effort, like it's done on your part. Like how it's received. Like, yeah, you want it to be received well, right? But it's really not. Other people's opinions aren't what's important at the end of the day.
I started getting a better following when I stopped trying to say things that I thought they wanted to hear. I don't know if you guys have listened to my show, but I do a lot of rambling, and I say rambling. I like my show. Some of my shows are basically a 22-minute run-on sentence, but I get a lot of information out there and I talk about a lot of things, and it's supposed to connect with the audience on a certain level, and it does. So the audience numbers keep growing. We keep getting great numbers, and that's all just me being as truthful to me and telling whatever story I need to tell at the time. And I think that's the best way to possibly do a podcast. But trying to do something allows you to think that you might fail at whatever it is you're trying to do, which means you're going to speak or talk with a tonality or a waver in your voice, and that comes across. Any insecurity, any fear, the lions can smell that stuff, and they won't listen. So speak bold, say what you got to say, and you're 100% right. Once it's done and it's out there, man, anything that I say, if you want to get mad at it, that passes through your filter, and then you presume to say what I've said. Bill Burr covered that one the best. And he's like, once it's out of my mouth, it's in your head, and you rattle around, and you come back and you spit it back out at me. I'm like, that's not what I said. That's not my intention. That's just what you did with my words. You did that, right? So yeah. And when you, like I said, when you speak with integrity and when you speak true to your character, you're going to rub people the wrong way, because those people are desperate to fit in. They're desperate to make a name for themselves by dragging you down. And it's hilarious. Anyone that puts in the effort is going to get shit on.
Yeah, but you're also going to resonate with a lot of people too, because there's enough people out there in the world that if you think and like something, chances are there's going to be a lot of people out there that think in a similar way and like a similar thing. And if you're creating it, it's going to resonate. So, it's again living inside your own head that, yeah, there's other people out there.
100%. 100%.
Question number 7. If I were to ask your best friend, what is the one thing they would say you need to work on the most, and why?
What would I need to work on? Making more public appearances. I'm absolutely in love with my alone time, and as much as I used to be a social butterfly, and as much as I can spend, like when I'm out, when I'm with them, I'm 100% with them. But a lot of people recharge on their own, and I do a lot of that. So everybody's out and they're doing this and they're doing that, and they want to go here. I don't drink either, so like going to the clubs and all that sort of stuff, or going out, I'm not into it. And if we go out for dinner, I'm always the first one gone, because I don't stick around for after drinks. For the most part, I'm not going to stay out until 11, 12, 1 o'clock on a regular basis. Maybe 2 or 3 times a year I'll do that. So I would say they would probably tell me to be more social. Even though I'm extremely social and I get everything in that I want to get in, but I want to be up nice and early. And I know I sound like a goddamn cliche. I get it. I was the guy that was, constantly out, constantly drunk, constantly, doing the cocaines. That was the way it was when I was locked in the third dimension, when I was desperately, almost suicidally depressed and filled with anxiety. I was hiding in everything. And that's probably another thing that they would say. Quit being so preachy. Whenever I see somebody that's down, I'm like, I want to help. But like you said, unsolicited is unwarranted. They don't want it. So the best person that you can help is the person that comes to you.
Yeah, that point in particular has been something I've been thinking about a lot recently. It's I don't know, for anybody that, I think this is a common thing to have like a Superman or a Messiah complex, this want to fix everything because you want stuff to be better, right? But we can't take that to an extreme. And so when you realize that, don't go looking for people, like if opportunity presents itself, then you can be of use, but just take it easy otherwise, right? You don't have to stress.
100%.
Question number 8. What was the most embarrassing or humbling experience of your life?
That's a loaded question. An interesting one too, because I don't think anyone's going to shoot straight with you on that. For me, I don't dwell on anything I ever did. The version of me that was a piece of shit, I don't really remember much of it. I'm sure there's people out there that hate me. I mean, actually, there's people out there that hate everybody. You don't even know it. You're like, and here's the interesting thing about humbling and how we view ourselves and how we think about ourselves. Like I mentioned earlier, spoke of earlier, cocaine was a huge thing for me. Like, I loved it. I fucking loved cocaine. I was a high ticket sales. I was a sales coach, a sales trainer, and everything was high energy. It was cocaine. It was a huge cocaine line, just a powerful hero. And then a cup of coffee in the morning. It's ridiculous. It was stupid. But it got to the point where, this was it. It was part of life. So there's a lot of stuff that goes along with me being humbled with that, because I always kept it a secret. I was never one of those guys that was like visibly on cocaine. It just kept me straight when I had zero energy and zero desire to do anything. And when I was desperately clinging on to the third dimension. And I was just so fucking miserable that I needed this drug to appear normal, feel normal, seem normal, quote unquote normal, the drastic normal. But I kept it a massive secret. So once or twice, that would pop up, that it would come up and it was this or that or whatever. So I think about that stuff and I'm like, that, to answer your question directly, it would probably be any time that was ever pointed out about me, because I was trying to be in control of it. When I mean in control of it, I mean like my perception of it, allowing people to see what they see. But to expand upon the question itself, I think that anything that you've ever had in your entire life that you have thought about over and over again, or like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe this was the outcome of that. I was so stupid. Those are the things that change you. So all of the things that you're most embarrassed about or the most humbling, these are the things that change you. Literally, the worst thing that ever happened to you will change you. The worst thing that you ever did to somebody will change you. Right? All of the things that you don't think about never changed you. But those things played a factor as well. All we really do as we sit here today is we run the highlight reel back in our heads. All the great stuff, all the bad stuff. That's what we think our life was. Right now at this point, that is the amalgamation inside your head of who you think you are. It's not anything. The version of you that you try to defend as well only exists in one place inside your head. Nobody looks at you and says, the character that he thinks he is, that's who I think he is too. No, they see you through all of the shit, all of the small stuff. If that person was having a bad day and you bumped into them at the bar or whatever, even your friend, even if you scuffed your friend's shoe one day 5 years ago, they may never have forgiven you for it. Right? So there's no two versions of you that exist anywhere. Anywhere. The version of you that you defend, tooth and nail, that only exists in one place. So when we talk about humbling experiences, when we talk about embarrassing experiences, these are the things that only resonate inside you, and they only exist in there so that you can never do them again. Right? And then there's other things too, like I said earlier, like somebody somewhere hates you, no matter who you are. Because you could have done something completely oblivious to. You could have cut somebody off in traffic at some point. And this guy spilled coffee on himself, and he had to quickly run home and change. And when he got to the job interview, it was too late. He lost the job because you cut him off. So for the rest of his life, he's out there looking for a white Caprice with a partial plate that he's got in his mind. And he hates you. He hates you. Meanwhile, you're totally oblivious. And then the same thing can be said, well, if that guy had given himself put an extra shirt in the car, given himself some extra time so he wasn't in such a hurry, things would be different, right? So every single aspect of every single person who's ever intertwined with anyone ever all did exactly what they needed to do to become the version that they're becoming of themselves. We are all intrinsically connected. When you really focus on the power of how you view shame, like I said, those are the moments that you're like, I'll never do that again. I feel so shamed about that I'll go out of my way to avoid a scenario like that. And I'll make sure I never do that. It was in the cosmic stars that you did what you did. And it's totally okay for you to forgive yourself because you've learned the lesson and you've altered your life accordingly due to that lesson. Yet you've not acknowledged it yet.
that's about lessons learned. I mean, that's as with any experience, but specifically with the embarrassing or humbling, those are maybe some of the harder ones, or easier because they stick with us, like you were saying. Like it never leaves you, and it teaches you that maybe in a little bit more of a difficult way, I guess. Can be difficult if we choose it to be difficult. Choose for it to be difficult.
Absolutely. It's a great topic. I like the topic.
Yeah, I like that you brought up cocaine because interestingly enough, because we actually have a sponsor. We're not sponsored by cocaine
Because we're on cocaine right now.
Yeah, we're on now. Speaking of, 1 second. No.
1 second.
I had the pleasure of interviewing founder of Aura Cacao, Jonas Ketterle from he's from Germany, and he was an exchange student over here, I believe. I'm remembering my guests right, but he has this chocolate company, right? And so there's this whole other side to the cacao plant that I didn't really know about. Everybody has heard about hot cacao, right? Hot coffee, or not hot coffee, but hot chocolate, right? But usually it's bastardized with a ton of sugar in it, right? But Jonas puts out this stuff that's 100% pure ceremonial grade cacao, and there are some very subtle physiological effects that you can experience, like with uplifting your mood. This works a lot with the heart center and the heart energies, and so I've learned. I've developed this awesome relationship with the cacao plant. I have incorporated it into almost my daily practice at this point. Having a hot cup of cacao in the morning.
Yeah, well, people don't realize that cocaine and the cocaine is a derivative of the coca leaf. So chocolate and cocaine come from the same plant. So they very similar result. Like if there's dopamine inside chocolate. Speaking of cocaine, since we're on it, you know what the number one tweet in the world is? The number one most appreciated tweet in the entire world was when Elon Musk said, "Next, I'm buying Coca-Cola and putting the cocaine back in it." That's the number one liked tweet in the world, and I think that's hilarious. Good tweet.
All right, you can sum up our society in one tweet. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. I'm buying Coca-Cola and putting the cocaine back into it. Perfect. I'd buy it. I'm not going to lie. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't even eat pork. I would buy that Coke. The sugar is more deadly in it than the cocaine. That's the thing.
Yeah, the sugar. It's like, yeah, back to the sugar thing. Question number 9. What is your greatest fear? How did you overcome it, if you have?
Oh, fuck. What am I afraid of? When I was younger, I was afraid of heights, and I wasn't. Interestingly enough, that remanifested as vertigo later in life. That was kind of fun. Which was, I found out after, I was 22 years old, and I was on the roof doing windows. And I looked over the edge and completely lost all equilibrium. And so from my buddy's perspective, who was on the ground, he just saw me standing on the roof, looked over the edge, and I just jumped off. He says, "What the hell was that?" I said, "Bro, like I landed awkwardly too. Like it was a one story. I jumped.
Okay.
It wasn't huge or anything like that. I sprained both my ankles. It was an awkward next couple weeks, but it was gone. My ability to comprehend up and down, left and right, and I'm like, if I don't jump and take control of this, I'm gonna fall and land on my head. So I just jumped off the roof, and yeah, it was awkward. So that was a very fun vertigo experience that I've never had before. And I've had it since a little bit. It's weird looking down and getting that vertigo. It's not a fear of heights, but I mean that's not the answer you were looking for. But that was a fun little side story on that. Fears are rooted in insecurity, and my insecurities are rooted in challenges I haven't overcome yet. So I'm currently 6'2", about 300 pounds. I carry it well, sure, but I'm bigger than I've ever wanted to be. And I did it to myself after I gave up literally all of my vices: cigarettes, drugs, women, pork, canes. I guess I took on food, and you realize that that's the deadliest drug of all. But that's the battle that it's not even a battle right now. I've decided as of November 1st, I'm going completely carb free. So I've eradicated all carbs from my diet. And they say it's not healthy, and everybody's got a story for this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, it's easier than fasting because I really wanted to eliminate all food. I mean, are you guys familiar with breatharians?
Yes. I am.
And this shit's fascinating, and they exist. So the idea, when you go down enough rabbit holes, you're like, fuck, is all of food a conspiracy? And you're like, people are like, oh no, with regards to cancer and this and anything, they're trying to donate to cancer research. Bitch, they have been killing us with food through cancer. It's not that they're trying to solve it. They created it. Anyway, this is not medical advice. We'll give that a precursor to this podcast if any bot is crawling through here, assuming that I'm misinformationing everything. These are just personal opinions, and if you soundbite any of this episode, you must include all of it. What the hell was the question? What am I afraid of? Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I afraid of? I'm not even afraid of death anymore. I'm actually looking forward to it. What am I afraid of? As a public speaker, there's the imposter syndrome, which is a fun fear. So I don't have any overt fears, but before I get on stage and I'm speaking in front of people, every time I'm like, I shouldn't be up here. I shouldn't do this. The craziest is when I spoke between Pitbull and Tony Robbins at the 2017 Real Estate Wealth Expo in Toronto. And the audience was huge. And I went on after Pitbull. I was like, oh,
awesome.
And that was kind of a fun experience. But it was terrifying. So was I afraid of that? Only for 10 seconds. And then you just sort of get into it and you start speaking. I'm afraid of the gym. I go there every single day and I'm afraid of it until I'm there and then I love it. I don't know. I don't think I'm afraid of anything. I think I'm here to experience what comes, and I think I'm okay with experiencing it as it comes. So it's not like there's any reason to be afraid. Not really logical to fear anything.
Love it. Yeah, good answer. The Tony Robbins thing, that's pretty freaking cool, man, that you got to speak with those guys.
Yeah, I keep the it's just part of my art repertoire, but yeah, that was, where is it here? Real Estate Wealth Expo speaker 2017. I thought the date was on it, but it's not. Yeah. So 2017, I was a last minute. Oh, this is hilarious. I was a last minute addition. So I was on the you didn't make it list, right? But if somebody drops out, we'll give you a call. So stick around. So I was on that list, and 2 people dropped out. So I had to go up and fill 20 minutes speaking in front of about, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 people. Is that right? I don't know. Maybe it was less. Maybe it was 2,500. There's a lot of people. The auditorium was full, and it was a massive convention center. And she said, the last thing she said to me before I went on stage was, act like you're supposed to be here. I'm like, what does that mean? She's like, don't make it weird. I'm like, okay. So I went out there, and the first thing I did was I turned around to the crowd and took a selfie with me standing in front of all of them. And I got on the mic and I said, she told me to act like I'm supposed to be here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not supposed to be here. You don't know who I am. I was supposed to speak, if anything, in the smaller auditoriums, but here I am filling the void for the people that didn't show up. So hopefully I can entertain you, and hopefully we can get onto with whatever it is we have to get onto with. And for the most part, I'm going to wing it. So here goes. And I dove right into it. And I had some fun back and forth. And I kept glancing over my shoulder at the broad, and she's just got the death glare on her. I got off stage. She goes, "You'll never speak again." I'm like, I had fun.
What? It was a great icebreaker. What are you talking about?
I thought it was perfect. And she was just so pretentious and so wrapped up into it. And I said, okay. What she really meant was, you'll never speak for our company again. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Right? There's a million people to speak for. And also, it's better just to speak for yourself, because if you speak for yourself, then you're not tethered to anything that they want you to say or not say or do or not do. But I'll tell you, it was fun. I had a blast. And the coolest thing in the world was, at the same time in the same convention, it was Comic-Con. So I got off the stage, and then I went and got my picture taken with the the Star Trek guys. They invited me over to because some of them had seen me speaking and all that sort of stuff. So I got invited into like the back scene area. I got to meet Captain Picard, Will Riker. I got to meet all these like cool people. It was a really fun day for me.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, they all hated me, but I had fun with it. So
Yeah, how dare you tell the truth?
Yeah.
And because of that, you will never speak here again. Like what? It just speaks to so many levels.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was hilarious. And I said to her, I couldn't pass up the opportunity because everybody out there is sitting in that audience going, I could never do what they're doing, or I could never be that. And that was the first thing I said. I said, I was 10 minutes away from sitting in the audience like you guys, and here I am standing on stage talking to you guys. So don't ever give up. And it was cool. And also it's my life. It was cool that I got to do that. I passed Pitbull. He went off stage. I came on stage. I'm like, I'm in the same breath as Mr. 617 or whatever the hell the songs are. I don't know. I've never listened to Pitbull, but he's cool, right? So it was cool. I don't know. It was neat. Mr. Worldwide, he was in everything back in like 2011. He was on every song. Come on.
And you can always, offhand, that time I was on stage with Pitbull. Yeah, I got to go, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, I've just done it here on this show. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, man, it's a lot of fun though. It's a lot of fun, and like that sort of creativity comes from, or that sort of opportunity comes from creativity, and just comes from you being okay with whatever happens, right? You're gonna tell me I can't speak, whatever. I don't need. Again, this falls back to I'm following passion. I don't need your money. I don't care. I mean, like she's like, I still never got paid for the show, right? And that's hilarious because there was a drop back, and at the time I was selling a course and a program. So we sold from the stage, and from the stage we did $15,000 in 20 minutes. And I was like, this is great off the stage. I never got my check from them, which was embarrassing to say the least. It was, I got 20% of my own product and they kept 80. But whatever, they gave me their audience. And then my Instagram kind of, blew up from that as well. So, I mean, I got I don't need their money. I got kindness in return is what I got. And that to me was enough.
It's interesting that you mentioned Tony Robbins too, because I just started a new book called The Emotion Code, and Tony wrote the foreword to this code. It's by Dr. Bradley Nelson, and I guess he met Tony, or Tony got word of Dr. Nelson's work about using basically our bodies to read our a sway test is what she calls it. I haven't gotten too far into the book yet, but one of the first things that the author starts to talk about is creative insecurity in how our creative works, how we're insecure in presenting them to the world. And we've already talked about this, touched on some of these points, but I just thought it was a little synchronistic that you were meeting with Tony, and then I just read the whole thing about, emotions and how to deal with those on a healthy level with him as the forward in the, did he talk about that at all? I don't know. You said it was on Comic-Con, but.
Oh no, it was two. It was the Real Estate Wealth Expo and Comic-Con were in the same, at the same time. So as soon as it was done, honestly, I've never been a fan of Tony Robbins. I never found him to be authentic. And I understand that, he needed to do what he needed to do. One of his greatest teachers was Jim Rome. And one of Jim Rome's greatest teachers was Dale Carnegie. Right? So there's lineage there. But Anthony Robbins swears, and it's just so weird. He doesn't seem like he's genuine. He doesn't seem authentic. But there's a lot of people that follow him and that follow it. I also am not a big fan of celebrity. Like ultra celebrity, Tony Robbins, Oprah Winfrey, Brennan Burchard, these guys in this realm. I'm also not a big fan of my realm. I don't like coaches, and that's what I do for a living. And because everybody seems like everybody's chasing the dollar. So I've found myself in a situation where I'm trying to help people cure themselves naturally without bullshit, and without a 12-step program, without this, and they just literally get inside their own head and fucking work through it. That's what I'm here for. So I have a discontent with the majority of the industry, and that's not me shitting on my industry. That's just me saying I'm an outlier to my industry. And there's a lot of people like me. So with regards to Tony, did he talk on that? Did he see it? I didn't see him. He wasn't with any of us. He was completely on his own. He came out, he did his 45 minutes, and then he disappeared. So I was chatting with one of my friends for a minute. We were up in the front, and he came out on stage. He's big. He's a lot bigger. I know they say he's a giant and all that sort of stuff, but when you see him, he's big. Like He almost looks Tartarian for Christ's sake. But I caught 5 minutes of his thing just to say I saw Tony Robbins speak, and then that's when I went over to
Gotcha.
the nerds.
Well, it kind of ties into one of our questions, and I'll kind of skip ahead because it's question 10, but we're going to do question 11 because it's about role models. Who were / are your role models and why?
Man, my role models are every single person that's out there that's doing what I want to do and is a couple of steps ahead of me. I got some really good friends. I'm going to give a shout out to Sam Crowley. He did Every Day is Saturday. He's got a podcast. It's really good. He's just a dude that made something huge of himself from speaking. So is he a role model? No, it's just neat. It's neat to see a man do that. It's in life we're told that we can't do stuff. We can't say these things. We can't speak up. We can't, whatever. We're always told again to shut up, to sit down. It's like all culture, all of our cultures everywhere is like, sit down, shut up, keep quiet, stay, sit, get in your seat, stay in line, don't speak, all this sort of stuff. That's all you hear as a child, right? So when you decide that you want to do something, you step into it. Role models is a big one. There are a lot of people that I admire. I guess from afar, and it's not any one particular person. It's anyone that's doing what they want to do. I have a lot of smaller friends on Instagram that are huge. I had a girl on the show. You guys would like this one as a guest too. Sherry. She is a meme artist on Instagram, and she's got a regular job, full-time, whatever, the whole 9 yards. And she's a little bit stressed out about cash and a little bit stressed out about life and just generally stressed out. But all of her stuff all on Instagram, it's all her. It's all her. And she's got some memes that you guys have probably seen. Like, she's created some memes that if you look at it, you're like, fuck, I've seen that before. Like, she's done some stuff that's next level creative. And why I admire that is because a lot of my creativity is a spin on somebody else's thing with regards to Instagram. So I'll take memes and then I'll tell a story about it kind of below the meme. I create some of my memes and some of the stuff that I just need to put out there. But hers is all creativity. And hers is the one that we sort of pass around. I think that's fantastic. Another person I admire is a small friend of mine. She's like, I say small, she's like 5'1", tiny, tiny, tiny. She never knew her father, and her mother passed away when she was a child. And she has lived a life where she's constantly on her own. It's inside her own mind. And it's fascinating to see how far she's become, or how far she's come. I've noticed she was like 18. And she's 30 odd now. And she just, about a year ago, she just up and moved to Mexico in the middle of the pandemic. Not in the middle of it, but towards the tail end of it. She's like, I'm done with Canada. I'm done with the rules. I don't trust this. I'm going to take a flyer on Mexico. I admire that. I admire tenacity. I admire anyone willing to challenge anything and to keep stepping and to keep pressing and to keep doing with integrity. I also admire Rambo in the Rocky movie. Rambo in the Rambo 1, where he was in the small town, as opposed to like the celebrity of the whole thing. I can't remember his name. It's John something, the character he played. John Rambo. The judge, Dennehy. Dennehy was the small town sheriff. That's a great movie.
A different form of masculinity back then, wasn't it?
They pissed him off, so we blew up the whole town. And you ask anyone, he had the right to do all that the way they treated him. I don't know, man. Role models to me, again, it's almost like a religious thing. Like, don't bow to false idols. I don't even bow to money. I don't give a fuck. Right. So I'm not going to bow to anybody that tells me I need to bow to you. And again, role models is a different thing. It's like, who do you want to emulate? It's not celebrity. It's somebody who proved the system wrong. All of those people to me are role models. And that even includes you guys. I mean, you guys right now have said, this didn't exist before we did what we did, and we're doing this right now to create what we're doing. So you can step into this. You can step into this and you can speak and you can create. And somebody somewhere is going to listen to one of your shows at some point and go, fuck, these guys are doing it. I can do it too. So either you're going to change the world or that guy's going to change the world, but that's role model material right there.
No, I like it. It's the, your role model is the path, not the person.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the lead by example, and it's the example. That's it.
100%. Yeah. I love that. I've never even thought of it that way, but yeah, I love that for sure.
What is your single greatest driving force in life, and how do you further it?
Collecting Air Jordan 1s. That's the only reason I do absolutely anything. But you guys didn't see that coming. No, I do have a collection of Jordan 1s. And the funny thing about that is I also have a collection of Ninja Turtles. I have a collection of stupidities all over the place. G.I. Joes. They say there comes a point in time where you try to find happiness in a certain stage of life or whatever. You revert back to a certain stage, a certain being. I have over here every video game system ever made and every video game ever made for them on them, but they're the mini versions, right? So I don't have the full ones because I chinsed out. So I got all the minis and I modded them so they have all the games that I ever played as a kid. And I'll sit there and every now and again I'll crack out Mortal Kombat 2. I'll crack out NBA Jam Tournament Edition, and I'll just throw myself back to being 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 before life got complicated. Jordan 1s, simply because I grew up poor. I could never have them. Artwork, all kinds of stuff, trinkets. I like these things because I also believe there's a high likelihood that we're going to find something is coming along the way that is like financially turmoiled. In other words, we don't know what the market's going to do. We don't know what money's going to do. We also know that people all over the place are getting fed up with the rising cost of gas, the rising cost of everything. Living, inflation, food, housing. It's absurd. There's going to come a point in time, there's going to be a breaking point. It's going to be the 100th monkey where everyone's just kind of like, wait a tick, Basil. And money is not going to have the same value it once had. I'll tell you this, a pair of Jordans is always going to be worth a pair of Jordans. So I like that. It's completely not the question that you asked. What was the question? What is my driving force?
Surviving. You're just talking about like being able to barter and exchange and engage in commerce after the system collapses. Like that survival is a good driving force, right?
Yeah. Survival for sure. And trinkets.
That's right.
It's so funny.
President Camacho is going to need shoes.
I 100%. Idiocracy. One of the greatest movies. It's a fucking documentary at this point. Oh my God. Yes. You're going to be able to do this. Like, and I hummed and hawed on a jet ski for the longest time, And when I first started looking at them, they were like 10 G's. And then when I finally bought them, it was $23,000. I'm like, but you know what? That fucking jet ski is going to be sitting on my dock every summer and I'm going to have some fun with it. And it's going to be worth a jet ski. It's always going to be worth a jet ski. Not 10,000, not 23,000. What is it? 5 years from now, it's going to be 40,000. We're going to get to a point. It's inevitable. We're going to get to a point where the value is no longer in the price that they're trying to sell. And people will just stop altogether. Not stop buying. They'll stop believing. They'll stop believing that we need this and we need that. And the government regulations will change this and change that. It's inevitable. It's an absolute inevitability. People will say, oh, earlier he talked about being a tinfoil hat guy. So this is just that. It's not. It's pattern spotting and executing. Like there is a financial collapse coming and it's not going to be the way it looks. It's just going to be you and me just throwing our hands in the air and saying, I'm not doing this anymore. There's no more. There's nothing. I'm not doing this.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about money. It's just an agreement. You and I have both agreed in our heads what $20 is worth. We agree what this piece of paper is worth. If we change that idea, we fundamentally change the entire value of the system. We don't even need it to be backed. So it's a wild new world. Now that you have cryptocurrency, it's kind of like, we now have the tools.
It's energy storage.
Exactly.
Right? You work for hours and that $20 bill is your stored effort. That's all it is. It's stored effort. And people are missing out on that, right? And one of the biggest illusions that's going on right now is that is that the world thinks that money, again, like I said before, money is, how many times have you heard in anything that's going on in the world, follow the money, follow the money. People don't realize that money in all of its grandeur was invented by the very people keeping us slaves.
Exactly.
They don't need it. It's not about the money. It's never been about the money. We think it's about the money because in our lives, it's been about the money. It's been, I need this money to get that done. But they invented it. They invented it to keep us chasing it so that we would never find out what we were truly meant to be. We would never find out our true purpose. It's fascinating. This world, the whole thing about everything about this world is, it's all a lie. And when you start cracking the code, you're like, fuck, I can't believe I wasted so much time thinking about such basic shit. And then you just start inch by inch, piece by piece, step by step, you start stepping into things, making realizations, having brand new ideologies out of nowhere, and creating a whole new life for yourself based on the very information that they give you. It's like looking at the magic eye in the mall back in the day. Jargon, visual mumbo jumbo. Look at it long enough, it's a sailboat. Holy shit.
It's
That's
crazy.
what the third dimension is and the fifth dimension.
And it's crazy that nobody thinks about that. The question I'll postulate to people is like, you cannot just be a human being. It's like, you can't just go and live off the land and eat the food that you want and go to the bathroom in nature. If somebody sees you and you're in the wrong place, you go to jail. If you eat the wrong thing that's the wrong size, you can go to jail. You're living here, you're not paying the taxes. Like, all of these things are built upon us, and there's cages of the mind. And nobody thinks about the fact that, for most of where people live in the industrial world, you cannot live as just a human being. It is not allowed. There is punishment.
And if you even try to without punishment, people think you're fucking crazy.
Yeah. That's the crazy thing. And then nobody thinks about it. And when people do, they're like, wow, you're right. It's like, you are so far away from your roots.
These are the very people that don't believe in indoctrination. You're all indoctrinated. No, I'm not. I do exactly what I'm told. All right. It's true. That's a whole other topic right there. That's a whole episode. That one. One question. What the fuck?
New question, Bill. What the fuck?
What the?
Yeah, this is the one question podcast. What the fuck? All right, let's get into it.
That'll be for our repeat guest. We'll have him on a second time. One question. What the fuck?
What are we doing here? I don't know. I feel like we've wrapped that one up neatly.
Yeah. Next question. What quality do you most admire in a woman?
Kindness. We live in a world where women are trained to be afraid, but there are some women who see past that. I love a woman who understands. I love a woman who shares a funny meme. I love a woman who understands being able to consciously create, to ask questions, and to live inside her own power. In other words, not be all wrapped up in the third dimensional, big ass, big tits, big lips, big TikTok account, this, that, and the other thing, but be 100% true to herself, comfortable in anything that she's doing, seeing past all the manipulation. Imagine how many companies would go out of business if every woman woke up tomorrow confident, right? Women have been, I've talked about it on my show a few times right now, the war on men. Women have been attacked since the invention of television. You need this and you need that, and you need to smell good and shave your armpits, and you have too much hair, and don't show this and don't show that. And we were forced to wear masks, right? We were forced to wear masks for 2 years in Canada. It was forced for a long time. And I think about, this is the first time I've ever been forced to do anything. And I think about, you were talking about earlier about, you can't just go up into the bush and live off the land. Shit that we just take for granted. Like, I could walk around with my shirt off. If she did that, she's hypersexualized, self-conscious, also worried about if her boobs are too big, too small, too this, too that, worried about what people will say, think, or do. She's totally locked into this. I'm absolutely must wear my shirt, but a man doesn't have to. And, I look at this sort of stuff and it's continuous. It's ongoing. Women have to worry about what they eat, what they wear, who they associate with. And all of this comes from, again, the manipulation, the television, the this and that. And the other. So when you say, what do you admire in a woman? I admire her ability to be as truthful to herself as possible. I also admire that in a man. And to include with inclusivity. But I will draw the line at man and women. I don't need to play that game. Dave Chappelle said it best when he said, with regards to everybody else, he's like, I understand you want to do what you want to do, but how much of my participation goes into your psychosis, right? That to me makes the most sense. You do whatever the hell you want to do. If I have to play along, I'll play up to level 2. Aside from that, I don't care.
Right.
And so for women, I just say, man, the best thing I can say to you right now, any woman listening, is just love yourself. Just accept you for who you are. Don't think about anything anybody else has ever said to you, and change the things about you that you know you can change, that you know you want to change. Anything else? Again, like I said to anyone, live with integrity, be happy with your choices, do the things that make you the happiest, execute.
Yeah, I love that you said love yourself for who you are, because it's one. It just reminds me of. So I think it's supposed to be the greatest commandment, right? Is to love yourself so you can love, and then love your neighbors like you love yourself, or something like that.
The
Somebody
Ten
said that
Commandments is
sometime,
awkward.
right?
The Ten Commandments is a weird one too. I mean, like you could literally, Moses didn't have to spend all that time chiseling into tablets, downloading from the cloud. He could have just been like, don't be a dick. That's the number one commandment. Do not be a dick. Bottom line. You don't know what people are going through. You don't know what everyone's doing. Take your smug ass self and stop being a dick about it. That's the 10 Commandments rolled down into one, in my opinion.
Exactly. 10 Commandments, golden rule, all everything.
Yeah.
No, I like that you were talking about that on your latest episode, Dark Night of the Soul. I caught that one.
Nice.
So listeners, go check that out if you haven't yet. I do appreciate your, by the way, side note, the length of your episodes. You keep them nice and concise, and that's for somebody that can sometimes get into podcasts that are like 4 hours long, right? I like the shorter ones now. Like that's the trend I'm moving towards. Just give me the point, give me the facts. Have a nice day, right?
I've mastered the 22-minute speech. Well, I haven't mastered it, but I appreciate the 22-minute speech.
Same here.
And for me, it's like when I am speaking on that, I didn't know how to sign off. I never knew how to sign off the podcast or anything like that. So I stole a Canadian icon, keep your stick on the ice is how I end, most of my shows. Well, all of my shows. And the fun thing about that is I start the show off. I go from 0 to 100. I could take it right to the wall. And then just as I'm going, you have no idea I'm about to end the show. I'm like, and in the infamous words of Red Green, keep your stick on the ice. Right. And the show's off and you're just done. So I ran you right to the end and the show's off. And you're like, fuck, like what else was there? And that's kind of fun too, because a lot of people see the ending coming. They see this, they see that. There's the wind down where you start getting bored of shit. Not me. I'll take it right to the end and then I'll turn it off. And it's usually, my brain is usually good at tying everything together for about a 22-minute episode. Now, if I've got guests on there and the conversation goes long, I just had a guest on, I don't know how long ago, and he was fascinating, very entertaining. We did 2.5 hours. A 2.5 hour blockbuster movie would cost you, would have cost millions to make, but we created 2.5 hours of entertainment for anyone that wants to listen. And I find that shit entertaining every now and again. I don't know how Joe Rogan does 3 hours a day. I don't know how he does that. I do not know how he does that. Dedication.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also can't not see the semblance in the 22 minutes there. It's like your standard sitcom. Carve out the commercials, and that's what you got left for content. I wonder if there's kind of like a data amount that the mind is comfortable with.
Yeah, it is. Most of my topics and most of my shows I have no idea what I'm going to talk about when I just click record and wing it. And I start rolling through certain things and I realize that after 22 minutes, I've probably gotten into repetition and repeating myself or getting into redundancies in any way, shape or form. So that's where my brain just goes. And I also like my brain tracks. I can see the recording so I know how much time I've got. And I'm like, well, I could probably talk about this, this, and this, and then tie it back into this. My brain will just, and then I see 22 minutes come up and I'm like, I have a million things that I could keep talking about, but I'm like, shutting it down. Beep.
Yeah, it
So-
speaks to a good level of efficiency. As Einstein said that, the final equation of like the universe would just be, very simple and could be written on a napkin. You can condense, no need to sprawl it out. At some point, when you got the certain amount of facts, you can only mix them together in a condensed way so much.
Love it, for sure.
What is the most courageous thing you have ever done or seen in your life?
Courageous. This is a strange question, eh? What's courageous? What's courageous these days? Standing up for yourself in a world that wants to shit on absolutely everybody? That's courageous. Not being afraid of cancel culture in today's day and age? That's courageous. Not bowing to the masses? That's courageous. Standing up for what you believe in 100%? That's courageous. What have I seen? I lived through, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Ottawa truckers protest, Freedom Convoy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
followed
I
that
watched-
a little bit.
I was there, boots on the ground, and I grew up in Ottawa, so I had to go back for this event. I watched our prime minister declare war on its people. Oh my God. We live in a clown world, and everybody stood for what they believed in. They stood, they stayed, they helped. I watched communities come together. I watched the most beautiful things in the entire world where everyone was helping everyone. And then I watched our fearless leader call us all domestic terrorists because we didn't agree with him. I also watched him tell us on live TV that something had to be done about those terrible anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, that we should be rounded up. There's a French interview where he's talking about that stuff. And I think to myself, it's just watching this manipulation, watching this sort of fall back, watching everything that we were supposed to always have the ability to believe in. Believe in the police. The police are there to help. Believe in your government. Your government's here to help. You look at this stuff and you realize that they're all oppressors. And in true courage right now is being able to stand against that because the world isn't ready to wake up to it. So anyone that stands up against it is going to get shit on by everyone initially, then everyone they know, even though I'm technically fighting for you and you're attacking me. That's courageous. Standing in your power, standing up for what you standing for what you believe in. In any, again, back to integrity and non-violent tendencies. When you stand for, and even if you believe in some weird shit, if you stand for it, great. Like if you stand for the intergalactic battle of quasars and quirky Johns, good. Tell me your story. Tell me why you believe it. State it with pride. That's cool. That's cool. So yeah, I saw a lot of courageous stuff during the convoy when the police were really moving in and really messing with your ideologies, making you think that you're a terrible person, making you think that you're going to spend your life in jail for not supporting death to small business and utter corruption and blind obedience. That was beautiful. It was a beautiful vision of humanity.
Yeah, I agree, man. That was the progenitors of this podcast are a couple Canadians. So I followed that a little bit more closely than I think most Americans did. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe all of America paid attention. But yeah, that was quite a movement to witness.
It was neat. It was neat too. That one thing that nobody talks about is you could literally sit there in downtown Toronto or downtown Ottawa, sorry, and look out the window at friends holding hands saying, "How do you do?" And you look at the news and it's night and day. The news on the television is saying just how terrible it is and how these people are terrible and oh God, they're all terrorists. They're all truck driving terrorists. And then you look out the window and everyone has come together as a community in this support and stance. It just blows your mind at how fake the idiot box is.
Yeah. Yeah, just take whatever they say and flip it on its head. That's pretty much better off that way. All right, last question. If you could give one sentence of advice to future generations, what would it be?
Don't be a dick.
That's one might be redundant.
Don't be a dick. Most people that are dicks have something to prove. Anyone that's got a large mouth, huge bravado, they've all got something to prove. They're all cowering from something. Do the shadow work. Like, don't be a dick. Do the shadow work. Figure yourself out. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much of a dick you are to this person or that person, in any given experience, the one person that you, for the rest of your life, will always have to atone to is you. You are the one person that will always remember everything that you ever did, in every aspect of everything. So no matter who you are today, you're stuck with you till the end. So it's up to you to be the version of you that you want to be proud of, not one that's twisted and manipulated into some dumb bullshit.
Well said. Well said. For listeners that don't already know where to find you, where's the best place for them to get a hold of you on the interwebs? I know that you're not taking on clients currently, but I do appreciate your podcast, so please do share.
Yeah, you can see some stuff that we're doing. We're having some fun over at thementalmasteryalliance.com. You can check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/The Mental Mastery Alliance. We are not on Twitter. We've been banned. We might be able to go back with the whole Elon Musk thing, but I'm not interested.
Congratulations. If you're not on a list, you're not doing things right.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we are right now at the mentalmasteryalliance.com. If you have any questions and you want to reach out to me or to the team at all, do it. We give away a lot of stuff. There's a lot of free advice, and we're willing to help anybody with anything. If you need anything, hit us up on Instagram, DM us. Somebody is always answering the DMs. And so by all means, don't hesitate to ask some questions, because that's how you get answers.
Yeah, don't be shy. Reach out.
For sure.
And with that, Adam W., not Adam Loyal, thank you so much for spending some time with us. That's something that we never get back, right, is time. So it is truly precious, and it is not lost here on this show with us or our listeners. So thank you for doing that for us.
Not a problem. I actually really enjoyed myself here. And sorry to everyone that agrees with us that the short episodes are the best. We went for an hour and a half on this one. Our apologies for such greatness.
Wink, wink. Yeah.
Well, along there with Bill, thank you so much for joining us. It's really appreciated your wisdom.
Happy to be here.
Why is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why your suicide rates on the rest so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians, and use labels? Now that's racism. I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. Yo, why? I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. Yo, why? I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. Yo, why? I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why, the night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why, and why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why, and why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on wrecking these fat beats? And teachers don't make more than professional athletes? And why, and why, and why, and why, and why, and why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. I don't wanna Hawaii. Why?
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.